Andy Liu, 2 days away from playoff Looney. At this time in 2 days, we will be breaking down a Looney masterclass. So that's where I'm at mentally.
There is no playoff series that Looney will not have a masterclass in. That's just who Kevon Looney is. The only center in the NBA that is matchup proof. Kevon Looney.
The Ringer probably put 200 million words together debating Embiid versus Jokic, all to get played off the floor.
No,
by Kevon Looney. Like,
what's
even the point?
Is Embiid switching off on the perimeter? No. Is Brook Lopez? No. Get out of here.
Of course not. Of course not. We got special guests today. Our friends, they host the Candlestick Chronicles, and actually, by virtue of their proximity and jobs in Sacramento, uniquely qualified for this conversation. Chris Biederman, Kyle Madsen, how you guys doing?
Outstanding. It's good to finally be here.
I need it to be Saturday at 5:30.
Yeah, let's start there. So for those who don't know, Chris works for the Sacramento Bee, senior sports reporter, covers the Kings, and Kyle, Andy would say you live in Sacramento. I would say you live in the Bay Area, but we can get into that. We can get into the debate of where the Sacramento Bay Area cutoff is. But I kind of want to ask you guys, like, what is the general vibe been up there so far? Because I scanned my timeline and it's a lot of radio personalities with their chests puffed out so
far. I think in town in Sacramento there is a lot of confidence, and I think it just stems a lot of confidence, a lot of excitement, a lot of Kings fans just ride hard for the Kings. And so I think it's perfectly understandable, like the first time in 16 years, just be really excited at the opportunity to play the Warriors, the Northern California rivalry, the defending champions, like bragging rights, all that stuff makes sense. But I just think that, there's generally a messaging that's coming from the team that's drastically different from the fan base, which is funny to me. Like Mike Brown is recently, as less than 2 weeks ago, they lost on a Sunday afternoon to the San Antonio Spurs, and Mike Brown called the team soft. He was like, "We don't play defense, like we're soft, particularly at home." And he's been asked about, leading up to the playoffs, the idea of other teams targeting the Kings in the first round, when that was a discussion and talking point by Brian Windhorst and whoever else. And Mike said flat out, like, "Yeah, I would target us too, the way we've been playing." And so Mike Brown Mike Brown's super authentic and real, and I appreciate that about him. But he's been saying, like, no, we have to earn this respect. And I think there's a difference in how that, like, I don't know that the fan base is hearing that, because the fan base has their chest puffed out, and like, more power to them. I understand all the excitement, but I just wonder if this town, it's been so long since the playoffs have happened here, that like they have an understanding of how different the postseason is compared to the regular season. Because as years have gone on, we've seen the regular season matter less and less in the NBA. And like, again, I'm just thankful that the games get to be played, because the discussion back and forth and the Kings fans having their chests out and stuff, it's great. But I just hope everyone has a realistic understanding of like what's about to happen.
A week is a week's a long time. That's like really what I come back to. Like by tomorrow, Andy's going to be texting me Ryan Rollins highlights. Like
I will not be, but I respect that. I will not be. By the way, Biederman, you sound like someone that's watched the Warriors for a long time. That's what that sounds like. Because, Kyle, we've watched this team for a while. I don't think Warriors fans are running out there and saying, like, because I don't think there's a rivalry. I don't think anybody hates anyone. But I think Warriors fans are kind of
wait till like game 3. It's going to happen.
Oh, dude, I already hate most of my friends.
It does feel like I think Warriors fans are kind of thinking to themselves, maybe deep down or maybe out loud, is, yeah, you guys have something coming for you that you don't know what you're about to see.
That's kind of how I've approached all of this. Like, it's annoying when, and again, these are my friends. I like these people. But when I see a friend of mine who will remain nameless is like, the first time Steph sets a screen, they should just run through his chest. Like, yeah, do that. Like, go ahead. And then he's going to drop 50 a game. Like that just
It's like you just came across a strategy no one has thought of for 8 playoffs in a row.
that's the thing that's frustrating me is this idea of like, because do I get bitchy during games and am I irrational? Yeah, for sure, more than anyone. But the idea that like, oh well, these Warriors are washed now. Like they didn't just win a fucking championship 10 months ago. Sorry, they didn't just win a championship 10 months ago. Largely the same group. Oh, Otto Porter's gone. Okay, like this idea that like all of the sudden the Kings have figured out the NBA and the Warriors haven't is really, really annoying. And I'm just, I like I said, I've been to that place. I was on this podcast like last week, like, I don't know if they can win any more games. They're just cooked, but like, it's obviously ridiculous. And I get it a little bit, but like, dude, Ty Jerome's not playing. Anthony Lamb's not playing unless it gets out of hand.
Well, Steve will absolutely put Anthony Lamb out there at some point. I agree. I will put money Anthony Lamb is in there by game.
He's not averaging 20 minutes, right? Probably
that I can't promise.
So, but no, it's like this Warriors team just in the last 15, 20 games is different than the Warriors team from the previous, 60 plus. And this notion of like, oh, well, the hand waving by Kings fans, like I get it. It's a 3-6 matchup and the Kings have been really good this year, but like, have you watched? Do you know what you're looking at? It's frustrating.
So, unfortunately, maybe not.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like, like I'm in Sacramento. I cover the team. I don't want to sound like I think they have zero shot to win. I do think Golden One is going to be a unique atmosphere and like have we believe type vibes to it. And I'm curious how many Warriors fans are going to be in the building to counter that. I guess I think it's going to be a really unique atmosphere. I do think there's a possibility for like a buzzsaw game or two where the Kings hit like, 50% of their 35 threes and just win by way of shooting, and it sort of avalanches against the Warriors. And we've seen that happen to the Warriors in the playoffs. Sure. But the fact is with the Kings, like we just don't know. And I think one of the things to me that's troubling about their chances in this series is like, they went 0-6 against the top 3 teams in the East. And after every one of those games, Mike Brown is talking about physicality and the fact like their offense is fool's gold if they're not going to play with more physicality and defend anybody. And there's, like that's a real concern. Like there's the physicality, the defense, the pace, all that stuff changes. Like every possession is magnified to the nth degree in the playoffs, particularly in games 5, 6, and 7. And the Kings haven't gone through that. And like, I always liken it when people ask me, like, I liken it to what the Warriors went through in 2013 and 2014, right? Like those playoff series against the Nuggets and the Spurs and the Clippers did a lot to give the Warriors experience to eventually get over the hump and get to the finals and win a title. And like, that's sort of, I don't know if the Kings are ever going to get there, but this season, just getting into the playoffs and playing a team with that type of experience that the Warriors have could be big for them long term. Now, obviously we're way down the line, but like if they're going to take that next step, just getting experience is the big thing here for them. And I think they understand that. And I think Mike Brown sort of like, I think if you gave Mike Brown true serum, I don't think he'd be upset that the Kings drew the Warriors. Like he could have done, he could have played the Warriors in that Friday night game or played the starters in that game and potentially pushed the Warriors to a different seed if the Kings tried to win. But he didn't. And I think he knows that, like, yeah, we're probably not good enough to win a championship this year, but there could be real benefit in playing a team with that type of experience because they've been to eventually where they want to go.
I hadn't thought about that. It's light years from Mike Brown. I had not thought about that.
How much stock do you guys put, Sam and Andy, and I guess Chris too? How much stock do you guys put in the experience aspect of this for the Warriors?
I mean, I feel like that's all you have to rely on. If we're being honest, nothing about the Warriors' regular season suggests a contender.
Correct.
They've been erratic, big games at home. On the road, they look like old dudes who don't want to play. Players in and out of lineup. Steph missed 27 games. Can keep going down the line on that stuff. all you really have to go off of is these dudes literally won the title last year. They've won 4 in 8 years. They've been to 6 finals. At a certain point, you have to just trust that until I see them actually look old when it matters, I can't weigh a March game in Atlanta for meaning that much. So yeah, experience is everything for this team.
The old Warriors would sweep this Kings team. I mean, it would be game over right off the bat. But
the old Warriors would have been the 1 seed. So
right, but I'm when Kings fans or anyone are saying like they're washed, it's like, yeah, well, they are old. They are, which is why I think the series goes 6, is that they will end up losing 1 game, maybe 2, that they probably shouldn't lose. That's what's going to happen in this series. It's just going to be the Warriors turning the ball over 25 times, and unlike them in their prime, they can't just shoot their way out of it, right? So I do think, like Chris was saying, there is a chance that the Kings just win Saturday night 125-98. Would that surprise anyone? And then would it surprise anyone that the Warriors make an adjustment right after the first game and just win the next 4? Like, that wouldn't surprise anyone either. That's the experience part. That's what they did against Boston. It's what they did against Memphis. They just make one adjustment. And then
to Biederman's point, the 2013 point, the Warriors came out and looked better than the Spurs for 2 games in that series. And it was like the most shocking sports moment of my life, because the Spurs were just on a pedestal for me, like the model organization, the Patriots of the NBA, like that sort of thing. And it was just wild to see the Warriors basically just take it to them. And what happened? You know, the veterans were like, okay, well, we definitely can't go under Steph on screens anymore. And we got to make a few adjustments. And then because they know what they're doing, they made those adjustments and it was over in 6 games. And that's kind of how it goes for young teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox is 25. Domantas Sabonis is 26. You know, Harrison Barnes is the only one with any legitimate.
Keegan Murray is what, 20, 21?
21,
like 18.
22. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he acts like a 35-year-old.
He's old.
Yeah. But no, to the point about like experience, like we kind of had the same thoughts about the Warriors. Last regular season looked a lot different for them, but there was a stretch, I think, in February and March, they lost 16-23. And we're like, damn, is the dynasty over? And then they go on and do what they did in the playoffs. So, like, I think for me, last year gives the Warriors the equity that I think they have and they deserve, because you can even look at the, like, you know, the starting lineup, the net rating is 21.9 with Wiggins in the lineup. I know it's a small sample size and it's been a while, but like the Kings starting lineup, 2.2 net rating, right? And the Warriors are 8-2 over the last 10. And, you know, they've been, I think they have the second best net rating in the NBA since the All-Star break, right? So there are numbers that say, yeah, there's probably a better team somewhere under there, under all of the shit that they've been through and done this season, that says, yeah, they could still probably get to that level that they need to get to. While the Kings, it's like, you know, they had a game against Minnesota, which was really, really hyped. They had t-shirts for everybody in the building. And like, it was the night that they were supposed to clinch the playoffs at home, and they just fell on their face and they didn't beat Minnesota. Right. And they, like, going through all of their games, you can, you know, like, I don't know what the Kings' best win of the season was. Like, it's probably the Clippers game where they scored 176 points in double overtime.
That was a fun fucking.
But that's
it was. But the Clippers, you can make a pretty good case, trick that off like what, 3 different times.
Sure. And that's a game that, now it's the Clippers, but so you can't say this like with certainty, but I'm a little bit confident that the Clippers don't trick that game in the playoffs.
Right.
Like the Kings got, I think that, right. I said a little bit of confidence.
It's
not a playoff game.
Andy and I talk about this a lot, but we give way too much respect to the Clippers when they haven't actually done anything.
No,
that's a different conversation.
No, that's fair. But the thing with Sacramento is, this is a credit to them. This is not to take anything away from them, but they were balls of the wall all year. They never rested anybody. They were trying to win every single game up until the last 2 games of the year. And that's another thing in the postseason. It's like, no. The other team isn't playing 80% anymore. And that's where I think the Warriors are going to reach I don't know if it'll be a championship level, but I just can't fathom that they allowed opponents to shoot almost 40% from 3, like 39.7% from 3 this year on the road. And I can't fathom that they're going to go into Golden 1 and the Kings are just going to shoot 40% from 3 for the whole series.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the Warriors, that version of the Warriors is gonna show up.
I want to ask Biederman a quick question here. What do you think is the biggest misconception Warriors fans, and really let's just take this to non-Kings fans, have about the Kings? Like what do you think?
That the experience doesn't matter, that the playoff experience doesn't matter. Like I've talked to one of the players on the Kings sort of at length on the last road trip about he's played in the playoffs recently.
It's Harrison Barnes.
No, it wasn't Harrison
That wasn't recently.
But
I was going to say
7 years.
Harrison Barnes no matter what you
7
say.
years for my guy.
I just asked him. I was like, how do you compare the playoffs to, the regular season? He was like, there's nothing about it that's the same. Like it's completely different. And, it's just like, it's Golden 1's going to be, it's going to be on fire, right? The atmosphere is going to be crazy. Like no matter what, no matter how many Warriors fans are in the building, it's going to be obscenely loud. Like it's going to be a ridiculous atmosphere. But you guys know, like there were a lot of high profile games in Oracle and in Chase that were super hyped and the atmosphere was going to be great. And then it ends up turning on the home team when they come out and go, 2 for 17 from 3 and they're down 12 points at halftime. You know what I mean?
That's a good one.
This story. I was at the Warriors first playoff game in the 14-15 title year against the Pelicans. They got up close to 20 in the first half, and then exactly what you described happened in the third quarter. Like no one could make shots. It got very tight. You could hear a pin drop in Oracle. I was just like, this is far different than and that year they won 67 games. It was like every game was like a party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that sort of thing. And it's like, that's the sort of thing you see in the playoffs that it is.
I mean, those Memphis ones were,
the
Warriors looked rattled in Memphis. Those were the ones where it was like, oh no. And we're Cleveland.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, and it's just, these are just things the Kings need to go through, right? It's just really hard. Like there are basketball cases. Like, we could look at the regular season. We could look at the way the Kings score. We could talk about how Mike Brown knows the Warriors. We could talk about maybe the Kings having a better bench because they've, a lot of the bench guys have been pretty consistently available and there hasn't been like turnover like the Warriors have dealt with on the bench. But like the playoffs are just different. Like I refuse to believe that just because one team had this regular season, another team had this regular season, that really matters when there's such a drastic difference in playoff experience, particularly when last year, that's what the Celtics talked about, right? How often do Warriors fans talk about so many people saying, well, the Celtics are the better team, but the Warriors won. Well, it's like the Warriors had experience, like the Warriors are the better team. That's the better team wins the series. But the experience matters. And I would make the same case for the Memphis series and even the Dallas series. So that's one thing that I think you talk about misconceptions. So many Kings fans are like, oh, it's just going to look like it did in the regular season where the Kings had a better regular season than the Warriors. And that's what this is going to look like. I'd push back on that. At games 5, 6, and 7 in a playoff series are completely different than, playing the Pistons in January.
The one guy that I think people are setting up for failure here from William Mitchell, he says Keegan Murray. I disagree. I think it's Sabonis. I think that's the guy that I think people are setting up for failure. Hey Sam, come back, brother. He got scared. He saw the Sabonis slander that was going to come from me and got scared. I'm running the show now. Guys, he's not the kind of guy that kills the Warriors. And I think that's the one that if you told me that De'Aaron Fox averaged 26, 27 points a game in this series, wouldn't surprise me.
Sure.
I expect him to. But if you're telling me Sabonis is going to be the guy that they need to dominate Draymond and Looney to win this series,
that's the thing is Sabonis needs to dominate and put up triple doubles and do that. And maybe he does it once or twice. But when you're throwing Kevon Looney and Draymond Green at this guy night in and night out over a 7-game series where game 1 wraps and immediately it's game planning for game 2. And how do you stop Sabonis? Because that's our offensive hub. You get it to him at the nail and he's going to distribute. And if not, he's going to put his shoulder into your chest and he's going to go to the rack. Like, that's great. But like, that doesn't work against Kevon Looney. It never has. It doesn't work against Draymond Green. It never has. It might work a possession or two, but over a full game and then a full series sample size, like that offense is not going to bear fruit.
My thing on Sabonis is I actually think he's going to get his numbers. I think offensively he's a phenomenal player. He's going to get his 20. He might get 15 rebounds.
No, if he'll get 20, can't shoot.
I think he's going to score. But my issue with him, issue is probably not even the right word, is he's going to be trading 3 for 2. The Warriors, if they get in any way concerned that a game is getting away from them, it's going to be, all right, let's run a pick and roll at Sabonis. Let's run a brush screen at Sabonis. Let's have Steph, Clay, Poole run every action directly out of him, make him guard. And I just don't know that he can, do anything about that, particularly since the Kings don't have the perimeter players to maybe blow that up and protect him a little bit. Like, in general, if a big can't guard the perimeter, they're screwed anyway. But maybe if you have a Drew Holiday and like the Bucks situation, you can get away with like a Brook Lopez who plays in drop coverage.
Yeah.
The Kings absolutely do not have that type of scenario.
And I think, centers, obviously like Robert Williams, give the Warriors a whole lot more problems because of his length and because of the ability to protect the rim, right? And Sabonis just is not a rim protector. And really the biggest weakness with the Kings defense, in my opinion, is just their weak side help. And their, the low man being able to cut off shooters in the lane and avoid having a guy come in backside after somebody gets beaten off the perimeter and defend a cutter who theoretically is open. Like that's been a serious problem for the Kings all season. And like they have, De'Aaron Fox is a better on-ball defender. At least he has been this year than at any other point in his career. So credit him for that. And he's got size and length for a point guard, like athleticism. Like, he could theoretically play defense credibly enough, but also like how much energy is he going to expend on the defensive end? And is he going to have the energy that the Kings need him to have in the fourth quarter when he basically carries the offense for the last 5 minutes of the game, right? So like he clearly will get the Jerry West Award because he scored 194 points in the clutch, and was just like incredible for the Kings in the fourth quarter all season. But, like if it's not him guarding Steph Curry, I don't know who in the starting lineup is, right? Kevin Huerter's not doing it.
It's going to be Davion Mitchell, and then you run into, who are you taking out of the starting lineup?
Right.
And like
are the Warriors even worried about guarding Davion Mitchell?
Exactly.
3-point shooter.
That would be like a turning point of the series, though, is if Davion's going to knock down shots and force the Warriors to guard him a little bit. That's where things get rough because he's a dog defensively.
He's really good defensively. And if he could swing a game for no doubt in my mind, he could swing a game if he hit like 4 of 9 threes, because they're going to leave him open. Like if that Friday game last week is any indication, they're not super concerned about Davion Mitchell shooting. When he's on the floor, those shots are going to be there for him. He's had games where he's hit threes.
They're probably also going to leave De'Aaron Fox like the whole time. They're going to dare
from 30.
They're going to dare him. But forget the 33%. The number they look at is what, 3 attempts a game, 4 attempts a game. They're going to dare him to shoot 15 shots from 3.
I mean, he could draw Morano.
Yeah,
he could draw. Jaw made a bunch, but
Jaw. By the way, to that point, you're right. Jaw shot 4 a game in the regular season. The Warriors didn't guard him, and he hit 5 out of 10 or 11 in the first.
That was so annoying.
Yeah, but it's just like you get the strategy. They're like, I dare you. I don't think you're going to shoot as many threes as Steph. I don't think you're actually going to have the balls to take 12 of these in a row. I think you're going to actually get in your own head. So I think that's the sort of stuff they're going to do.
Why are the Kings not good at home?
Because they think so. This has been sort of a confounding question all year that we've had for them. The answer that I think makes the most sense is they've just got so comfortable with the idea like, oh, we're going to score 130 at some point that like we don't really need to defend in the first quarter. and then they'll be down to, double digits in the first quarter to a lesser team because they're not playing with a whole lot of energy early on, because they just kind of assume, like, for a large portion of the season, I haven't gone back and looked at these stats, but they were a top 10 road defensive team just in terms of defensive rating. Like they're hovering between like 8 and 10, because they just be more locked in on the road, being like, we have to play defense in a hostile environment. Whereas they just kind of assumed human nature that the offense the offense would come easy at home, which, it did for a significant part of the season. But again, that's one of the reasons, like, they're a young team. Harrison Barnes is their only, like, quote unquote old head on the roster with any playoff experience. And, like, Harrison Barnes is, by all accounts, super influential in that locker room, and they really appreciate his professionalism and all that. But he's not like a spark plug. He's not like a dude who's getting after guys for kind of dogging it. Like, he's a guy who's going to show up to the gym and be there at the same time every day and make sure he's eating the right things and not going out and all that stuff. But he's not the dude that is, like, forcefully, making the rules in the locker room and holding guys accountable in a way that, like, that, say, like Draymond does, right? So, like, or I don't know if Draymond's the best example, but you know what I mean.
Now,
like,
now we're running back to Draymond's 2015 contract negotiation.
Sure. But no, that I think they just sort of assume, like, yeah, we're just going to hit a bunch of threes at some point, and then they would lose. They lost games to the Wizards and Charlotte, and they lost to the 76ers, who were not playing Joel Embiid and James Harden. Like, they just had some weird losses. That they lost to the Spurs. They lost that game to Minnesota at home. They just had a bunch of weird losses at home that weren't really explainable beyond, like, yeah, we just sort of assumed the offensive avalanche was coming, and it just never did.
That's interesting, though, coming from a young team.
They were really good at it all year, so, like, you understand after a while why you'd lean on it.
But maybe they maybe they flip the switch. Maybe they're a better playoff team than regular season team. Who knows?
Maybe.
Just in terms of guarding people and not guarding people and all that, how do you think the Kings handle Andrew Wiggins? Because if I'm Sacramento, I'm putting, like, I don't know, they're just like their worst defender on Wiggins and being
Kevin Huerter.
Make him prove he can score. Guy hasn't played basketball in 2 months. Or 5 NBA games. Like, make him prove that he can go score 20.
What a segue, Kyle.
Yeah,
we got the update today. Wiggins is most likely going to play in game 1. We kind of all assumed that. I was just curious how much they would go with the gamesmanship. And the assumption is he'll come off the bench for 20 to 25 minutes. None of this sounds particularly surprising given his absence. How will they guard him? I mean, that's been kind of part of the reason he's been so successful for the Warriors, right? He gets the worst perimeter player. Like, if you're looking at the Warriors on paper, you put your best player on Steph, you put your second best player on Klay Thompson, and you live with Wiggins. Not because he's not a good player, but just because those other two dudes literally can score 30 and a quarter. And the list of players who could score 30 and a quarter is like 4. So,
yeah, I would guess they're going to put Keegan on Draymond because you don't really have to worry about, on-ball defense so much. I would guess it would be Barnes on Wiggins just because of, like, the strength and size factor. They typically, like, if there's a big, strong guy, they just sort of automatically put Harrison Barnes in that spot. I mean, yeah, to me, it all comes back to how they guard Steph. Like, I really don't know how they're going to guard Steph.
Who's their best defender at switching? Because that's who's going to be on Draymond. In my opinion,
it's not Keegan. So then maybe it's Harrison. I mean,
I was thinking
their best defender
because he's a vet.
Yeah, their best defender who's not Davion Mitchell might be Kessler Edwards, and I have no idea if Kessler Edwards is playable in the series.
Oh, things are getting weird. Kessler Edwards is going to play, dude. What is he related to Walker Kessler? What are we doing here? What are we doing here?
Walker, the Kings would take Walker Kessler in this series.
Yeah, Warriors would take Walker Kessler.
Maybe the Timberwolves should have taken Walker Kessler. That's a different conversation.
Dude. One clear advantage I think the Kings have is Trey Lyles. I think the Warriors would kill to have somebody like Trey Lyles. Like, yes. Trey Lyles is a super solid bench guy. He can play small ball 5. I think he's going to play small ball 5 because they don't really have a credible backup 5, and the Warriors probably aren't even going to play a backup 5. So I think Lyles fits into that role perfectly. But yeah, I mean, I struggle to see where the Kings have a real advantage unless De'Aaron Fox is just going to score 40 points a game. And
I mean, it might
could
be
happen.
worth your
Right.
while. It might be worth the Kings' while to take Fox off the court early and try to just attack the minute Steph sits. Like this
Yeah.
Warriors team, even with GP2 coming back, we're talking about a 7.5 man rotation. You know, like we know the main guys can get it done, but I don't think they want to go 42 minutes of Steph in round one.
he does.
And the Kings can force that if they play, if they play the rotations right.
De'Aaron does the donut rotation thing where he'll play at the beginning of a quarter and the end of the quarter, and then Mitchell will be in there for the middle of the quarter. So there's like at the end of or to start the second
the thing
and
we
fourth
hate when they
quarters.
do that with Steph. Yeah,
yeah. In the start of the second and fourth quarters, you'll probably see De'Aaron against the Stephless Warriors. So that could be an interesting wrinkle.
By the way, every LeBron team got such an advantage with that against the Warriors. It was always like, all right, how many minutes is Steve going to sit with Steph and Draymond on the bench while LeBron is just beating them to death? There
would be stretches where like you're not even watching the game anymore, just watching the bench.
Yeah.
And seeing when Steph
the
gets
pan out,
like,
it's like,
dude, it's brutal.
What do you guys think of
checking
the Jordan Poole Malik Monk matchup? Because I think that could be highly entertaining, sort of no matter how it goes.
I'm all in on the Jordan Poole redemption tour. I'm angry
Playoff
at
JP.
I'm angry at Andy for his just unnecessary Jordan Poole slander, and I've now gone completely the other way. I don't even believe half the stuff I say.
You sound like me now. I don't believe half the things I say.
I actually I think he's due. I think he's actually been playing excellent basketball the last month. It's just very hard to get the stretch at the beginning of the season where, you thought he was going to take a step and it absolutely did not happen. And he got punched in the face and all that sort of stuff out of your head. I think if I had to guess, I think he's going to perform better in round one than people think. And Steph might be a little more subdued. Just knowing the way the Warriors play, I think it might be a JP series a little bit.
You already kind of know. It's one of those where I think Steph knows that Steph doesn't have to go for 40 to win a game this series. That's not how this series. That's Boston.
I mean, they got far bigger problems if he has to go for 40 every game.
No, right.
True.
That's Boston. He has to go for 40 for them to win a game. Against the Kings, Steph's thinking, and we know this is how he thinks, if he can get Clay involved, if Clay's hot, if Clay comes out and hits 5 threes in the first half on Saturday night, Jordan Poole's rolling. He's not turning the ball over or falling down. If he can get Andrew Wiggins a couple looks at the rim, Steph, that would be happy. Like if Steph goes for 22 and 10 assists, I'd probably tell you like that. That's probably a win for the Warriors. Like that would be Steph's. He wants to be CP3 for this series, which is
Oh no!
I think the Warriors have a chance to live at the rim this series. I really think,
and that plays to Jordan Poole's favor.
Yeah.
It's him or Steph, their best player off the dribble to the rim. And it's probably Steph, but
Poole's so much better at doing that lately, right? Like you said, the last few weeks he's been so much better at just going downhill to the rim. I don't know what changed. Concussion wore off, maybe. But whatever it is, man.
No comment.
GP2, it probably is that he got GP2 to play next to him and Dante. Like when he has legit defenders next to him and not JaMychal Green, he can go cook, which is what he's paid to do.
How much I had two-part question. First part, did Moses Moody do enough in that last stretch of games to be a factor in the postseason rotation at all? Or is it going to be like last year where something goes wrong and he's going to plug in?
I think it'll be like last year. I think he will. I think we're going to get a Moses Moody game. I don't know if it'll be against Sacramento, but I do think Moses Moody will factor into the playoffs at some factor.
Because he'll play for Kuminga. Because Kuminga will come in and just do like 3 stupid things. And Steve Kerr is just going to go, yeah, that's not
Kuminga was the
out.
second. Kuminga was the second part of my question.
Yeah.
What's
Do
your
you think he
second part?
starts as you think Kuminga starts as a regular rotation player and they just kind of see how it goes?
Yes. I think
so too.
I think the number one thing the Warriors want is to figure out if they can play that Kuminga, Wiggins, Draymond front court in a small ball lineup. So it's like Steph and Clay, or Poole and Clay, or Steph and Poole, and those three guys, because that's kind of like the closest you're going to get to like the death lineup that they've been known for, right? They haven't got a chance to play it in the regular season because of a variety of issues. Wiggins injury, Kuminga injury, Wiggins missing. It just hasn't happened. I think 30 minutes, probably an exaggeration, but something in that like under 50-minute range it's played this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if they started it against the Kings at some point, because they always know they can go back to Looney, but it's one of those things where they need it to be playable. And I think they're going to give it a little more run than they should.
They better do it now. This is the series to figure that out, because you're not figuring that out against LeBron in round 2. So I think I know what Steve Kerr is thinking. I think Steve Kerr, when he sees 2 mistakes in a row, someone goes backdoor on Kuminga, and then he shoots a pull-up 3 for no reason, you can just see Steve just go, I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I think I'm just going to ride GP2 some more, or I'll just put Moody, or I'll just, play Anthony Lamb. Right? Like, that's what he's done all season. I just wouldn't surprise me if Kuminga played 28 minutes one game and then just 2 the next. It just Steve Kerr has done this all season. I don't know if I agree with it. I think we talked about it a lot. I don't think I agree with it.
I mean, you're not wrong.
But it's so Steve Kerr. But now it's the playoffs. Now you can't get mad if he's like, look, you made a mistake.
This is how we transition. Why Steve Kerr's handling of young players is similar to Kyle Shanahan's handling of quarterbacks.
Oh God.
I do have a question for you guys, because I've seen I've seen it up close. Like, Mike Brown has completely changed the culture, right? Like in Sacramento, He has a credibility about him that allows all of the Kings players to buy in, and he can be hard on his players because, and guys have told me this, like, he's coached LeBron and Kobe and Steph and KD, and they listen to him when he's critical of them and when he makes them do things they don't necessarily want to do. How much, in your estimation, do you think the Warriors have missed Mike Brown this season? Because it's, from what I gather and talking to more people, like, because they're even, members of his coaching staff that were with the Warriors, like, it seemed like Mike had definitely had his fingerprints on that team for a long time, and was even a conduit, like, for Draymond, right? Like, how much do you think his absence, because normally, like, an assistant coach leaving isn't that big of a deal, particularly for like a dynastic team, but how much do you think they miss Mike Brown given what he's shown to be for the Kings this year?
I think multiple games can be contributed to that, because to me, Mike Brown is the type of person who would have been able to help them get through the punch much quicker. Draymond and him have a relationship. Jordan Poole, like, he's the kind of guy who could probably calm them down and make it fun after 5 to 10 games. Whereas, like, if you watch the Warriors, they were miserable for what?
65 games.
I was gonna say as soon as they started getting over it, guys started getting hurt, and that was 25 games into it, and that's kind of been the story of the season. So I think uniquely he would have mattered way more this season. I don't think his X's and O's were missed. Not because he's not good at that, but like, it's the regular season. It's more about like being able to manage people, to me. They might miss his X and O's in the playoffs, to be honest. But I think that calming presence and someone like, you guys know how it goes. Like, Steve Kerr can be the greatest sounding board coach of all time. He's still the head coach. He's not an assistant. Like, it's just different when it's someone who's not like the big boss who's doing it, someone you feel a little more confinement in.
Mike Brown is Steve Kerr is the relationship coach. Like he's not. I don't think I'd probably be the first to tell you. Like he's not the. He has his principles on offense and defense, and he just kind of lets it ride. But I don't think there's a better coach in the NBA better than managing egos. Dude's got freaking Draymond on his team for 10 years. But to Sam's point, I mean, Mike Brown was just as good. I mean, how else did he change the culture in Sac? But the Warriors, I mean, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything coach-wise you could have done, which is why Sam and I were never this entire season had anything to say about Steve Kerr outside of, can you just play Kuminga more? But outside of that, there's really nothing you could have done. This team was a mess from the jump.
Speaking of that, how much do you guys think James Wiseman's going to factor into the series?
Oh my God! Hey, GP2 on De'Aaron Fox, big X factor.
I was just watching the 2020 draft.
No, you weren't.
It got shared. I'm not gonna lie.
No. Oh no. Okay.
Just pulled it up on the DVR.
The veracity that Joe Lacob with the mask on stands up and starts clapping, like it's. I'm gonna share it. It was very special.
What a walk down memory lane, like right in the middle of the pandemic.
By the way, all draft videos, like, and it's true of all sports, like they're the funniest things ever. Like, why do people clap after the pick? What's the point? You know,
my favorite people, particularly like the NFL draft, the people who like dress up, like face paint the jerseys, like go to the draft and get pumped to see who their team picks. It doesn't like cool. You see a guy cross the stage, like that must be amazing.
The NFL has the most amount of crazies.
I have a
for sure.
I have a couple questions before we get out of here.
All right. Okay.
One, I want everyone's take. Who is the role player who's going to factor most in the series? So
for which team?
Either. Have fun.
Oh, okay.
You know, it could be a positive impact, could be a negative impact. All I want is, like, I don't want you to be like, oh, I think De'Aaron Fox is going to score a lot of points. You know?
No, for me, it's Davion Mitchell. Because I don't think there's a world where the Kings win the series if Davion Mitchell is a non-factor, because he's clearly their best defensive player. He's the only real option they have to credibly guard Steph. And the Warriors are going to leave him open and let him shoot. And if he hits, you know, like I said earlier, like if he has a game where he scores 18 points and hits 6 threes, like that could potentially swing the game. Because like I just don't know what answers the Kings are going to have for Steph. I just don't like. I don't trust De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox has not done anything to make me think like, he can carry the load. He can carry his load offensively while guarding the other team's best player. Like De'Aaron Fox just has never proven to be that guy. So to me, the only version of the Kings winning games in the series is if Davion Mitchell is playing defense and scoring, and the Kings have to account for his shooting on 3-point.
He gets a little under Steph's skin. It's kind of contentious, and then he's able to hit some jump shots, or just like, and we got to keep him on the floor because he can hit some shots.
And he's not scared to shoot them. Like, he's not a great shooter, but give him credit. Like, he does shoot them. He's not going to be like deer in the headlights, I don't think.
I am a Davion Mitchell believer long term. Like, I do think the shot will come around, but like, you know, you guys could have fun with that in 2026.
Yeah, there's some Marcus Smart there. Some Marcus Smart there. Kyle, you want to?
Does Kevon Looney count as a role player?
Always.
Yes.
The GOAT.
Okay. The role player.
I think it's I just didn't know if he was like above that. No, I think it's Kevon Looney, because you have to make life a little bit hard for Domantas Sabonis. If he's just going to walk into a triple-double in the middle of the third quarter, like that, the Kings are really, really hard to beat, and they're going to score 140 points. But if you can just make life difficult for him, force a couple of turnovers, force a couple of tough shots, and just not allow the Kings offense to be like, okay, get it into him, and he just plays and does his thing, then I think you have a chance to slow the Kings down a little bit. But if he's going to cook, I just don't know. I don't know what the Warriors can do about it. So I think Loon's going to be big.
That would be shocking. All right. Gonna get a little arrogant here, but I'm going with guys are gonna kill me. I'm gonna go with Andrew Wiggins, because I'm not worried about.
I love you calling him a role player. You're my guy.
He is. if Andrew Wiggins, because I'm not worried about this series, right? I'm worried about the next one. I'm worried about him guarding LeBron. I'm worried about him guarding Kevin Durant. Then I'm worried about him guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo, which I believe are the next 3 teams. If Andrew Wiggins doesn't look like last season's Andrew Wiggins by the time it got to the NBA Finals, the Warriors are cooked. They just don't have a guy that can defend these elite wing guys. So I'm not so much worried about, oh my God, is Steph going to drop 40 points if they need Steph to drop 40 points to win this series. For them to actually win the 5th championship, they need Andrew Wiggins to look like Andrew Wiggins. And we haven't seen Andrew Wiggins on the court in 2 months. And they say he looks great. I don't believe it. Let's find out. Let's find out by the time this series ends. I just have no idea. How do we know what he looks like? We have no idea. They said James Wiseman looked great. That's
Boy.
They had Shaq and Chuck on ring coronation night talking about how Steph was going to pass the throne to Wiseman. They won a title and they didn't even have their best young prospect. People forget about that. I'm going to pull up the video
more
too.
polished
him up.
more polished than Giannis at that point in his career. Keep that in mind.
Exactly. That was anyway. For me, it's gonna be GP2.
Yeah.
I think GP2 is the ultimate vibes guy, and if he is feeling himself and making an impact, and obviously it's a series where he matters because the Kings are a point guard led team. So he's going to draw the assignment of guarding De'Aaron Fox. If he can kind of make an impact and turn some shifts where, he kind of has De'Aaron Fox in hell, and that's the type of thing that gets the Warriors on a run. The Warriors are the ultimate vibes team. They are. Steve Kerr is a vibes coach. Everything goes from there. If that happens, I think I'll feel very confident about them rolling forward. And it also buys, to Andy's point, it buys Wiggins time.
Mhm.
I don't know if Wiggins is going to be Andrew Wiggins by game 3, or it's going to take him game 3 in 2 months, but GP2 and, that whole thing going is the type of thing that can kind of alleviate that pressure.
This Kings team this year versus this Warriors team scares me more than Denver did last year.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean,
Okay.
that Denver team was very bad. Although Jokic is very good.
So
they had Jokic. I mean, they had Jokic. Games were close.
They definitely had Jokic for sure.
Okay, so the feeling I get from you guys, obviously, I think I feel pretty confident in which way the series is going to go. But the feeling I get from you guys is you're pretty strong on the Warriors, right? At what point would you be seriously at what point in the series would you be seriously concerned about them not winning the series?
Ooh.
Or what would that have to look like?
I need 3. I need the
3-1.
Kings to get them in elimination mode. I'm not going to say I'm not going to be annoyed if the Kings, let's just say, very good chance Kings win game 1. But let's say the Kings run them off the floor and it's 130-108, something like that. I'll be annoyed, but I'm not going to lose faith. Where I'm going to start waffling is if we get to actual elimination games. And that's just, for me, it's just them winning the title last year. They've officially won my trust to, until I see it happen, I'm going to have to just give them a little benefit of the doubt.
Down 3-1 would move me. Losing both road games. Whew,
yeah.
And
if they look bad doing it.
Losing at home and being down 3-1 would move me.
Would it surprise you if this is a 2-2 series, though? Going back, Zach. It just not this Warriors team. It just wouldn't. Yeah,
I'd be shocked if it didn't go at least 6.
Yeah,
Me too.
I have it at 6. Myself. Let's have some.
Do you
fun
trust
here.
the Warriors to win a game 7 at Golden One?
Yeah,
I do.
Yes,
I do.
I would.
It might be 50-50 Warriors Kings fans by that point if it's a game 7 and Golden.
Actually, we should have said this off the top. What do you expect the turnout to be? Because I feel if the Kings were playing anyone else, it would be the most electric atmosphere on earth. But we're all from Northern California. We know for a lot of the Bay Area, it's closer to drive to Golden One than it is to get to Chase.
I,
I'm not like actually convinced it's going to be that big of a home court.
if it wasn't Chris, you're closer to it, so I'll trust you here. But for me and what I've seen, this is 16 years in the making, 17 years in the making for this fan base. Like, I think there's people who have legitimately been fed up and been like, I'm not going back till they make the playoffs. I think the Warriors fan contingent is not going to be a huge factor game one.
Yeah, and I kind of think like supply and demand, right? Like there have been a lot of Warriors playoff games in the last few years to go to. I don't know that there's going to be like urgency from Warriors fans to be like, because I mean the tickets in Sacramento are like crazy expensive.
Yeah, they're more expensive than they are at Chase based off of Ticketmaster and whatever.
And I know people in Sacramento who are confident that there are going to be a lot of Kings fans in San Francisco, which I think
there should be. There should be.
Wouldn't surprise me either. That's a good point.
But I don't know. I don't know if how tangible that's going to be. But
I think
regardless, the atmospheres are going to be good, right? Like
it's going to be unbelievable.
I mean, it's true. I drop more money per spending weight of what I should have spent in 2007 or 2013 than I did in, let's just say, 2018 or 19.
You guys probably got enough weight to get in the building, like with a credential.
Yeah, people ask me, and I tell them, no, I'm sitting at home with a drink and some pizza. I'm gonna enjoy the game.
Yeah, but that's more of a choice. You can get there if you want to.
I know, but
it ninja your way.
I've seen too many games at Oracle. Maybe it's a game 7, but no.
But I was speaking to Biederman's point. Like, is my appetite as hungry to be in the building as it was in 2007? No, So
but that's what Kings fans are experiencing. Like this is the we believe equivalent.
Okay, I was thinking 70-30. You're thinking like 90-10.
85-15.
Yeah. Okay.
87-13 was the number I went.
What flat brim hat is Kyle Shanahan wearing when he goes to a game? Is he going to be at Golden One or is he going to be at Chase?
It's going to be a melon. It's going to be a melon hat. He'll be wearing some Vuori joggers with some Yeezys. Are they still called Yeezys?
Oh my goodness.
Just athleisured out.
If he goes to a game at Golden One and he's there with does he put the shirt on?
That's a good question.
I don't think he does.
I
don't think he does.
I mean,
if he does, that's why he'll never win a Super Bowl.
He will. He will if his Red Bull is a blueberry Red Bull mixed with his vodka, he'll put the shirt on.
That's great.
If it's a standard Red Bull, he might not feel obliged to put the shirt on.
I mean that is kind of the thing. Like for ironically for other sports, there's a nice split between the fan base. Like, people in Sacramento are just as much Niner fans as people in the Bay Area. So
yeah, it's a huge Niners town in Sac.
Yeah, and like you can say the same for the Giants too, like Logan Webb and that whole thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Logan Webb, I forgot about
JD Davis.
Where's he from?
Sacramento guy.
God, the Giants are terrible. Can we not talk about them?
Hey, go ahead, Andy.
No. Go
ahead. I was gonna say Logan Webb's like your one good player.
We're gonna put this on the Candlestick Chronicles feed, so I feel obligated to get Niners content in here. Andy, Brock Purdy, your thoughts?
I love him. I love Brock Purdy. My fear, though, is that they trade Trey Lance, and that was my question to y'all: are the Niners going to give up on Trey Lance in 3 weeks? Which concerns me. I love Brock, but I also would like to see Trey Lance play football, and something tells me that Kyle's fed up with him.
I can see it right now. Aaron Rodgers at Golden One Center with Kyle Shanahan. It's gonna be.
I would love that too.
It's gonna be perfect. Gonna wear a Kings hat, so he'll immediately piss off 62% of the Niners fan base.
And then when he evades the rush and launches a 5-yard slant to Christian McCaffrey, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be unbelievable. I'm back in.
To answer your question, Andy, I think Kyle Shanahan will give Trey Lance the season. I don't think they're going to move off of Trey this offseason, mostly because they just need the bodies, right? Like they're not going to draft a quarterback early. They need, it's not just going to be Sam Darnold and nobody else, right? So they do need the bodies, and they're open to the idea, I think, of Trey Lance developing. And look, like they've started 3 quarterbacks in 4 of Kyle Shanahan's 6 seasons. So they just need bodies, right? So they might just, nobody thought at this point last year Brock Purdy was going to provide, even after they drafted him, no one thought he was going to be anything more than like a practice squad quarterback. So even if Trey Lance is viewed by Kyle Shanahan a certain way right now, that could change, right? Theoretically, as the season goes on, if like say Trey Lance starts the season, he wins the job away from Sam Darnold, which makes plenty of sense. Like he probably should. And if he doesn't, it's a disaster.
Right.
But say the Niners start 3-0 with Trey Lance as a starter and he's like playing pretty well. How eager is Kyle Shanahan going to be to upset the apple cart and throw Brock Purdy back in there?
Oh my goodness.
So that's I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like it's on the table because we just see so much unexpected shit happen with the 49ers quarterback situation that we can't really rule anything out at this point.
I have one piece of advice for them. I think they should draft another quarterback with the 5th round pick. I think they should go get another one.
Jay Kaner?
I don't think
I think they should draft a lineman so they can keep their quarterbacks upright.
I don't think it should be I don't think it'll be the 5th round, but I do think they draft a quarterback because absolute worst case, he's your practice squad guy. At best case, you catch lightning in a bottle again. Dude. They're building a roster. They're just going to have cheap quarterbacks forever, so you better start restocking the cupboard.
They have the best freaking roster in the world. They just signed one of the best defensive tackles, and they cannot figure out what quarterback to throw the ball. It's unbelievable.
They're dead set on proving that they can win without a quarterback,
and they're not ever going to win without a quarterback. And that's the funny part.
No,
I don't think.
Shanahan saw the running backs don't matter discourse in his running backs don't matter discourse, and he was like, "Nah, quarterbacks don't matter."
Quarterbacks.
I'm in. He's never gonna find a Mahomes, so you might as well just try.
Trey looks like Mahomes. Point.
Kirk Cousins is still out there, man.
Except he's folding, but jeez,
dude, he's got to let it go. As a staunch member of the Bald Gang, Trey's got to let it go.
He's like 21. How is it that bad?
Dude, as a person who was that bad at 21, it'd be like that.
It's a red flag if you want to be a franchise quarterback.
God made him like a 6'3".
Is it a red flag? Have you seen Peyton Manning?
Trey Lance is built like a freaking monster.
Yeah, and God was like, "Nah, your hairline, got here."
This is the trade-off. You get all world like physical gifts, but you're going to have a few less follicles on the front of your head.
I mean, he is the Niners version of James Wiseman, where God gave him the ability to be, athletic. But then,
don't insult him.
That's the thing is, I think Trey wants to be good. Like, I think Trey understands.
I don't think Trey counseling every time he has a negative impact the way Wiseman does. But anyway,
yeah,
Trey just doesn't play. He just
That's it.
My take is like we talk about Kyle Shanahan can play with any quarterback. Like, why does Trey Lance have to be excluded from that conversation? That's my whole thing. Like, Kyle Shanahan can make Nick Mullins work. It's like, all right, so why are we just punting on Trey Lance?
Right.
That's kind of my thing. It's like just if he gets a chance to just play, we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo have really rough starts to the season, and then he's playing really good ball in November and December. In large part because he's just getting better as the season goes. It's happened like 3 different times with Jimmy. Like, why couldn't that eventually happen with Trey? He just hasn't gotten that opportunity.
It's true.
It never ends. We're gonna do the same chat.
It's never gonna end. Hey, it's great for content though. Like, I don't hate it. The fact that they're a contending team, they made the biggest trade in franchise history, and they've gone to the NFC Championship game in the 2 years since making that trade without using that quarterback.
The trade has failed miserably. It couldn't be going worse.
Just like the 2nd overall pick, it couldn't have gone any worse, and it doesn't matter. Except the Warriors win a championship because they have Steph. But
let's end it here, guys. I need some. I need the official ruling on where Bay Area ends and Sacramento begins. Like, so where Warriors country ends and where Sacramento Kings country ends. Kyle and I were texting about it. I think the preliminary discussion was what? Fairfield?
It feels like Fairfield.
Fairfield.
The Bay claims Fairfield.
So Kyle, wait.
God, that's
because we've had this conversation too.
Should I pull up a map?
I don't
I'm
mean
looking
any
at a
shade.
map
Bay
right
Area.
now. I'm looking at a map right now.
What
I
I
don't
know.
mean any shade.
I know. Andy's gonna be like the Bay Bridge.
Andy's-
This isn't shade on the lovely municipality of Brentwood or Oakley.
Do not.
wherever you
Oh
live.
my God. If
Do you
you're
guys
about to-
consider
my
it
God,
the
you're about to
East
come to the
Bay
925.
or the Central Valley?
What does Sac
Brentwood
or
or
Brentwood?
or Oakley?
I consider Brentwood East Bay. I am an
Same.
East Bay.
Okay.
I am an
Okay.
East Bay resident, or a product of the East Bay. I'm not a current resident of the East Bay. I am a product of the East Bay, and so I have to fiercely protect Kyle here and say
Okay.
it is not the Central Valley. If it has a 925,
Hmm.
it is the East Bay.
Andy,
I'm
are
just
you one of
asking the
those?
question.
Are-
Just
Hey, the minute I see 530,
Gone.
different discussion.
Gone.
Now we can discuss if he's Sacramento or Stockton. You know,
Sure. Andy, are you one of those like 415 and 510 are the only real Bay Area code guys?
Look, listen, you might be right. You might be right. Listen, you might be right. But now that I live in the peninsula, I've got to grow up a little bit, you know? So now I'm like, does Napa count? You know, Napa's kind of right there, right next
See, now you're getting to my neck of the woods. I'm a
707.
707 North Bay or Santa
Say
Rosa,
it
Sonoma
backwards.
County.
Yeah,
Like,
so Santa Rosa, that's what I'm looking at, right? Santa Rosa,
Yeah.
does that count as Bay? I would say yes. I want to say yes. So that
Yes.
means Fairfield would count, I would say. Walnut Creek, definitely. San Ramon, like Pleasanton, Fremont, those definitely.
Walnut Creek is.
Walnut
not-
Creek,
like,
bro. Walnut
how did
Creek's
that get
closer
into
to
the
Oakland than
dis-
Brentwood.
I'm looking at like the radius. Just,
I have to
just-
drive through Walnut Creek to get to Oakland.
I
the Bay definitely felt like it
feel
was in
like
the area in
I'm
Santa Rosa
much
growing
more-
up. That's all.
I'm much more evolved. Like I'm very into, and then he lists a city that I wouldn't even consider on the borderline.
Stockton count?
He's going screen share for the map.
This is very important.
This is.
I feel
this is.
very strongly about this. So
So where's
I
your
am
cutoff?
It's the
then?
defining-
9-county Bay Area.
yeah, but I'm willing to give them. Let's see.
That diagonal line with Contra
Yeah,
Costa
look.
County and Alameda is just making it even more complicated, I feel like.
Sam is going hardcore. You couldn't just use like a normal Google Maps. That's what I'm looking at. Gotta look at like a real
Well,
map.
Oh,
I mean,
this is
'cause, like,
this is
Dixon-
automaps.com. This is what Porter's been up to since he's been out.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, once you pass Vacaville, it's Sacramento territory. Like, I'm not gonna be disrespectful and claim Dixon. as a
Dixon,
Bay
I was
Area.
gonna say. You're going Dixon?
No,
You know
about
what's
Dixon.
wild? They
Rio
sell
Vis-
Warriors
Rio
gear in the
Vistas-
Sacramento airport.
Oh.
They have Warriors gear and Kings gear next to each
Then,
other.
I'm gonna quick. Let me reshare a Joe Lacob picture then.
That's
Wait,
where
so are you counting Stockton?
oh,
Manteca?
I'm gonna count Stockton because I know some people from Stockton who would harm me if I said it's not.
It's interesting because when I went to I went to UC Davis, and when I was there, all the Stockton kids were Kings fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was more related to in our time, the last relevant Bay Area team was the 2002 Kings,
Mm-hmm.
and they were more relevant. Even though We Believe happened, they were still more relevant in terms of like people's like background and lexicon.
Right.
Now,
Yeah, that makes sense.
now you're telling me all those Stockton kids are Warriors fans. They're in little Jordan Poole jerseys.
That makes a lot of sense.
It
That
does.
makes a lot it makes a lot of sense.
Have you guys watched Beef
Yes.
on Netflix?
I have
Yeah.
not actually.
Danny, the main character, at one point, he's talking about like this scheme, and he goes, "This whole time I thought I was Weber, and actually I was Peja," and my jaw hit the floor, bro. Like, where did they pull that out of? That show does
Amazing.
not take place in Sacramento.
Amazing.
Like, it's just
It doesn't
That's
make
wild.
any sense because it's based on Korean. He's Korean, and they
Right.
do a lot of Korean culture stuff. And there's no Koreans, as far as I know, out in Sacramento or Vietnamese,
guy.
maybe like Vietnamese. I think so, yes. But anyway, that was incredible. The Weber Peja, because I was like, where? The last time I heard Stojakovic was actually, I guess, his kid plays. But beyond that, I haven't heard his name in.
I feel like
Stanford.
like-
He's going to
I feel
Stanford.
like Peja is like the player from the early 2000s that I would most like to see play now. That dude would hit 9
Yeah.
a game.
He'd be like a Klay Thompson variant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same
but like
with
6'10".
it would be incredible. Same with like a Reggie Miller would be like a
Mhm.
like a Klay Thompson. Those are the types of guys that would be. I bet they tell their kids or their grandkids, they're like, if I played in today's NBA, I'd average 30 points.
Reggie does for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they all do. They all watch this. So like, what? I can just dominate these guys.
I mess with Reggie though because Reggie definitely has like an immense respect for the talent and the players now, but there's also that part of him that's like, but I would have cooked here too, which is fine. Like I respect that.
I saw a picture of Larry Markkanen's stats this season compared to Larry Bird, and they called him Larry Bird. And we're done. We're done
Okay,
here.
so Sam, you asked me about the misconception thing earlier. I have another one because the Kings had the best offensive rating of all time. There are a lot of Kings fans who are like, this is the best offense in history. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you can look at the defensive numbers. The best defense in the league now had like a 109 defensive rating, whereas like a decade ago it was like 101. Right.
Yeah.
So it like the context of like the Kings offense, while it's great, historically, statistically, really good, nobody, if we're doing a draft of the top 5 offenses of all time, is going, yep, 2023 Kings. Best offense, like,
and maybe, but that's
I've heard that
just,
argument being made by credible people.
John Weisberg in the mentions literally sums up the argument here.
Obvious.
Antoine Walker would take 15 threes a game in today's game. That's
Yes.
like when you get into the old head
Argument.
That's where you
what is Andrew Bynum doing in today's game? Go ahead. He'd be shooting 10 threes.
You ever watch? No. But that's kind of just to circle back, I guess, to the top of the show. That to me is the crux of like all of this with the Kings is what Chris is saying. Like in a vacuum, nobody's saying, yeah, that 22-23 Kings offense is an all-timer. But if they continue this for a decade, it's going to get looked at like that. But when you catch lightning in a bottle 1 year, like that's great. But now it's about sustainability moving forward. And that's not disrespect. Saying that winning in the playoffs in your first trip is hard is not disrespect. The Kings were one of the best teams in the West all year. They were the 3 seed and they earned the shit out of it. Like they have really good players. They've built a really good roster. Monty McNair has done a great job. But there's like checkpoints and benchmarks and reasons that teams don't just win a title in their first run or become legendary in their first run.
Mike Brown. Yeah, Mike Brown said that basically at today's availability. Like getting to the playoffs is the easy part. Taking the next step is the really, really hard part.
Mm-hmm.
And like you don't want to be the Atlanta Hawks of the Western Conference if you're the Kings, right?
Look at that one. I mean, shit.
So
look at the Memphis Grizzlies. What happens if they lose to the Lakers? You have one of the up and coming superstars, and you just can't win a postseason series. Look at the Timberwolves. There's just a lot of these teams that are like that. The Pelicans look like they're going to be falling apart. It's hard.
But the Kings also have an opportunity, whether they win the series or not, to be one of those teams that's next in the West.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what I'm looking for. Like if they win the series, it's a huge upset in my opinion. Obviously, I think we all share that opinion, but like that's what I'm looking at. Can this be the type of launching pad like 13 and 14 were for the Warriors?
Kings win this series. I'm a Kings fan rest of the way. I need them to win the title. It would be so cool if the Kings win this series and they win and they go out. It would be the coolest thing.
I think we should end on that. We'll end it there. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you
for
guys.
having us, man.
Thanks.